My name is Celine. And the night my life split into before and after was the night I turned 32. Most people remember their birthday cakes, their candles, their laughter. I remember the sound of glass breaking. I remember the way my fiancé's hand lingered on another woman's back. And I remember how every fake smile in the room turned into fuel for the plan that would change everything. That party was supposed to be my celebration. I had spent weeks planning it, the gold balloons, the string lights curling around the beams of our rented loft, the playlist full of songs from when we first met. My fiancé, Adrian, insisted he wanted it to be our night. He promised it would be unforgettable. He was right. Just not for the reason he imagined. It started innocently enough. Friends gathered with drinks, laughter echoing. My sister brought out the cake, candles flickering like small hopes in the dim light. Adrian slid his arm around me, his smile picture-perfect. He whispered, "Make a wish, Celine." I closed my eyes. And then I opened them, just in time to see him brush his lips against the ear of my closest friend, Ivy. At first, my brain refused to process it. The clink of glasses, the cheer of happy birthday. It was too loud to allow betrayal to land in full. But my heart caught it immediately. It tightened, as if someone had pulled the thread that held me together. Later, when people danced and the cake was nearly gone, I saw it again. His hand, sliding across her waist. Her glance, quick and guilty. His smirk, confident and careless. And I knew this wasn't a momentary lapse. It was a pattern I had been too blind to see. I excused myself and walked toward the kitchen. I gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white. 32 years old, and my birthday gift was humiliation, wrapped in betrayal. But even then, as rage boiled beneath my skin, another thought came, clear, sharp, unstoppable. If he wanted this night to be unforgettable, then I would grant his wish. But it would be unforgettable on my terms. I stepped back into the party, masking the storm inside me with a smile that no one questioned. The music rose, glasses clinked, and laughter danced in the air. Everyone believed they were celebrating me. They didn't realize they were also witnessing the first act of Adrian's downfall. And as I blew out the candles, I didn't wish for happiness. I wished for timing. Because revenge, like cake, is best served when everyone is watching. The morning after my birthday, the loft was still littered with streamers, empty glasses, and the faint smell of smoke from extinguished candles. I should have been replaying the laughter, the hugs, the toasts. Instead, I replayed the look on Adrian's face as his hand traced Ivy's waist. Not guilty. Not careless. Confident. Like a man who thought he would never be caught. I poured myself a cup of coffee, hands trembling slightly, and sat at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed with messages from friends. "Great party. You looked amazing. Best birthday yet." I stared at the words until they blurred. Nobody had noticed. Or maybe they had, and politeness kept them silent. Either way, I realized the first rule of betrayal: it hides best in plain sight. I told myself I could be wrong. Maybe it was harmless. Maybe it was nothing. But then Adrian came into the kitchen, hair damp from the shower, wearing the shirt I had ironed the night before. He kissed my forehead absent-mindedly and said, "You were glowing last night." Everyone saw it. Everyone, yes. But I saw more. The moment felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. I could either step back into denial or lean forward into truth, no matter how much it hurt. I chose to lean. That week, I began watching closely. I noticed how Adrian suddenly guarded his phone like it was made of glass. He used to leave it on the counter, face up. Now it was always in his pocket, screen turned away. He would tilt the phone when typing, shoulders hunched. At night, when he thought I was asleep, the faint glow of his screen lit the room until 2 or 3 in the morning. Ivy, too, became distant in ways only best friends notice. She canceled coffee dates. She replied to my messages with short excuses. At work gatherings, her laughter with Adrian stretched too long, like a rubber band pulled to the snapping point. Once, when I walked into a room, their conversation stopped mid-sentence. Silence has its own vocabulary, and I understood every word. The evidence began to stitch itself together. Still, I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. One evening, I borrowed Adrian's car keys under the excuse of picking up groceries. In the glove compartment, among receipts and spare sunglasses, I found a florist's card. A handwritten note, "Can't stop thinking about last night. Yours, I." The florist was 3 blocks from Ivy's apartment. I sat there in the driver's seat, gripping the note so hard the paper crumpled. My chest felt hollow, but my mind, sharp, calculating, was already moving. This was no accident. No misunderstanding. This was betrayal written in ink. I did not confront him. Not yet. Confrontation would give him control, the chance to lie, to spin, to gaslight me until I questioned my own sight. No. If Adrian wanted to play this game in shadows, then I would become the light. The next day, I started documenting. I saved screenshots of his late-night messages flashing across his phone when he carelessly left it unlocked for a second. I logged receipts, noting the dates, the places, the times. I even checked our joint bank account, multiple charges at restaurants I had never visited, often during the hours he claimed to be working late. It was like watching a puzzle complete itself piece by piece, and with every snap of the truth, my resolve hardened. Adrian and Ivy thought they were weaving a secret web. What they did not realize was that I had already picked up the scissors. But betrayal is not only about what is taken from you. It is about who helps you hold the pieces. And the first person I turned to was someone who had been there long before Adrian, my sister, Marin. I invited her to my apartment under the pretense of leftover cake. She walked in, saw the untouched plates, and knew something was wrong. Sisters always know. "Tell me," she said simply. So I did. I told her about the hand at the party, the florist's note, the guarded phone. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. When I finished, she placed her hand over mine. "We'll get proof," she said. "And then we'll decide how to burn his house of lies down. Together." Her calmness was the anchor I didn't realize I needed. Betrayal isolates you, makes you feel like you're screaming underwater. But in that moment, I wasn't alone. And being seen clearly by someone who loved me stripped the shame from my anger. That night, as I drifted into sleep, my phone buzzed again. A notification from our bank, another restaurant charge. Different location. Same pattern. Same hours. I stared at the glow of the screen, my heart pounding. Proof was growing. So was my patience. And soon, patience would transform into something else entirely. Because the more I watched, the more I realized Adrian's arrogance would be his downfall. He thought he was untouchable. He thought Ivy would remain my friend. He thought I would remain quiet. He had no idea that his greatest mistake wasn't betraying me. His greatest mistake was underestimating me. The next morning, I woke before Adrian. His breathing was steady, careless, the sound of a man who believed he was safe. I slipped quietly from bed and stared at him for a long moment. My chest ached, but not with longing. With clarity. Every lie he told was now a brick I would use to build the stage where he would crumble. I had proof, but proof is fragile until it's undeniable. A florist's note, some late-night receipts, he could twist them, laugh them off, call me paranoid. I needed more. I needed evidence so sharp it would cut through any excuse. That week, I turned surveillance into a routine. I started small, setting up cloud backups that automatically saved copies of photos, receipts, and messages. Every time Adrian's phone lit up, I caught glimpses, hotel bookings under his name, dinners for two, emojis that left no room for doubt. I began a private folder on my laptop labeled innocuously as tax records. Inside, I arranged everything chronologically, screenshots of charges, snapshots of the florist card, logs of when he claimed to be working late. It became a timeline of betrayal so meticulous it could have been presented in court. And still, I didn't stop. One evening, Adrian stepped into the shower, leaving his phone on the counter. My heart raced as I picked it up. His password hadn't changed. Within seconds, I was inside the vault of his arrogance. Messages with Ivy sprawled across the screen. Last night was perfect. She has no clue. Next weekend, same hotel? My hands shook, but my eyes burned with focus. I took photos of everything. Their jokes. Their promises. Even the way he called her my light, a name he had once used for me. I locked the phone, placed it exactly as I found it, and leaned against the wall until the water stopped. My pulse thundered. When he stepped out, towel around his waist, he smiled. "What's for dinner?" he asked, as if he hadn't just handed me the rope that would one day hang him. That night, I called Marin. I told her everything I'd found. Silence stretched on the line, thick with restrained fury. Then she said, "Good. Now you have weapons." But weapons mean nothing without strategy. Her words stayed with me. This wasn't about rage anymore. This was about precision. So I started collecting allies. Quietly, carefully. The first was Marin, of course. She had a friend who worked in cybersecurity, someone who could help me organize the digital trail into something airtight. We met in a dim cafe on the east side. He listened, eyes narrowing, and agreed to help without hesitation. "Cheaters think they're clever," he said. "They're usually sloppy." The second ally came unexpectedly. A coworker, Lila, who had been at my birthday party, approached me one afternoon. She hesitated before speaking. "I wasn't sure if I should say this," she began, "but I saw Adrian and Ivy slip away during the party. Upstairs. Alone." I didn't want to believe it, but she trailed off, guilt in her eyes. I thanked her, hiding the storm that raged inside me. Another thread, woven into the tapestry of truth. Piece by piece, the picture grew darker and sharper. Adrian, meanwhile, seemed more confident than ever. He hummed while shaving. He sent me texts like, "Running late at the office. Don't wait up." He even suggested we plan a weekend trip together in the fall. The audacity made me dizzy. It was as if his lies gave him wings, while mine were weighted with stone. But what he didn't realize was this: I was no longer drowning under his betrayal. I was learning how to breathe underwater. One night, as I added the latest screenshots to my folder, Marin sat beside me. She studied the files, her brow furrowed. "This isn't just about catching him," she said. "It's about exposing them both. You need a stage. Somewhere he can't wriggle out, where the world sees the truth at the same time you do." Her words sparked something in me. A stage. Yes. Adrian loved attention, loved being admired. He always performed best in front of an audience. What better place to shatter his mask than in the very spotlight he craved? But that meant patience. Timing. Calculating not just the what, but the when. For now, I waited. I collected more. Screenshots. Bank charges. Call logs. Even photographs from a friend who spotted Adrian and Ivy together downtown, holding hands like they had every right to. My folder grew heavy with evidence. And with every new file, I felt less like a victim and more like an author, writing the script of his downfall. Still, some nights, doubt crept in. Would anyone believe me? Would people call me dramatic, bitter, too emotional? Adrian had spent years painting me as sensitive. Would that shadow cling to me even in the light of truth? Marin silenced my doubts with a single sentence: "When they see the evidence, they won't be able to look away." And so I prepared. I sharpened the truth into a blade. I gathered allies. I built the stage. What Adrian didn't know, what he could never know, was that his betrayal wasn't destroying me. It was shaping me into something stronger. And soon, very soon, the performance he thought he was directing would turn into his public unmasking. The only question left was, would I have the courage to strike when the moment came? Marin came over with takeout and a notebook. We cleared the table and spread my proof across the wood-like maps before a climb. She drew 3 columns. Money. Messages. Witnesses. Her handwriting was calm. My pulse was not. We are not hunting drama, she said. We are building certainty. Our first call was to an attorney. Her name was Sable Torres. Her voice was steady, the way a seatbelt feels in a sudden stop. I did not want a lawsuit. I wanted a clean path out and a plan that kept me safe. Sable listened without interrupting. When I finished, she spoke in short, precise lines. Gather only what you lawfully access. Do not snoop past permissions. Label copies with dates. Keep a written log. If you present anything, present facts. Avoid opinion. Let the evidence speak. She paused. And open your own bank account today. I did that before lunch. A clerk slid me new cards while the city moved on outside the window. I set up direct deposit. I canceled joint auto pays that were in my name. I saved confirmation numbers. Each tiny click felt like a stitch closing a wound. Next, I met with our landlord. His name is Benton. He has a soft spot for broken cabinet doors and quiet tenants. I told him I needed a clear process if the apartment ended. He explained notice timelines, move-out steps, and how to document damage. He said he would not change locks without proper notice. He also said, if you ever feel unsafe, call me. Then call the police. I wrote that down. Back home, Marin's friend from cybersecurity, a careful man named Arlo, helped me sort the digital trail into something professional. We made a private archive with read-only links. We built a simple index, date by date, as if the truth had a spine. He showed me how to export message threads without altering metadata. He refused to touch anything I could not lawfully access. I respected him for that. Clean lines matter when feelings are messy. Allies started appearing like lanterns along a dark path. Lila from my office sent a statement, signed with the date, that she saw Adrian and Ivy slip upstairs during my party. A neighbor, Mrs. Pruitt, texted a doorcam clip of Adrian coming home near dawn on the night he had sworn he was stuck at work. My sister, Etta, called from 3 states away and said 5 words that felt like shelter. I am flying in. Say when. Sable had one more instruction. Decide your setting. Decide your audience. Decide your ask. She explained that a reveal has to serve a goal. Do you want an apology? Do you want to end the relationship? Do you want to warn his next circle? Choose. Then craft around that. I chose clarity and exit. I also chose to protect the people who had stood in my kitchen and sang to me while he texted someone else upstairs. So I designed a room. Not a courtroom. A dinner. A small private dining room at a quiet restaurant where the staff knew me by my tea order. I met the manager, a woman named Dawn, and told her I needed comm service and a reliable screen. She nodded without curiosity. We host board slides and birthday photos, she said. Truth looks the same on a wall. We agreed on a set menu so no one would argue about the bill. I prepaid the deposit so Adrian could not storm out with the check in his hand. I requested the door remain open. Transparency mattered. A plan needs a reason to gather. I wrote a careful invitation. Thank you dinner, it read, to celebrate the friends who made my birthday beautiful. I sent it to the same circle that had clapped for me as I blew out candles. I sent it to his sister, Kasia, who had hugged me tight that night and whispered, "You deserve someone who looks at you like you are the only person in the room." She replied at once. I will be there. I did not invite Ivy. I did not have to. Marin suggested a parallel thread. She set up a small one-page site with time-stamped documents. Each link had a simple name. Hotel receipt. Florist invoice. Message export. Doorcam clip. It was not a spectacle. It was a ledger. Sable sent me a script. It was 3 sentences long. You do not owe a speech, she said. Say only what you can prove. Then state your choice. I copied those lines on a card I could hold under the table. Truth shakes less when your hands know where to go. On the financial side, I closed the joint card that only I had opened. I left a clear paper trail. I listed the dates his charges had hit during the party week. I moved my valuables to a small fireproof box at my office. I placed my passport with Eda's name on a note. It felt strange to protect my life the way I protect my data, but it also felt right. There was one more ally I wanted, and I hesitated before I reached for it. Adrian's mother, Mira, had sent me a sweet message after my birthday. You looked radiant, she wrote. I am proud of you. She did not know. Or she did not want to know. I drafted a note and sat with it for an hour. Then I hit send. I am hosting a dinner next week, I wrote. I would value your presence. She replied with a heart and a yes. Every piece clicked into place like careful teeth on a zipper. The date. The room. The screen. The audience. The legal guardrails. The exit plan. The bag with my spare keys and one change of clothes that waited by my door, not because I expected chaos, but because I respect storms. 2 nights before the dinner, Adrian stood at the stove and made pasta like a perfect photograph of a partner. He handed me a bowl and kissed my forehead. I booked us a surprise for next month, he said. A weekend away. He smiled at me as if he were generous. I smiled back as if I did not already know the hotel he had chosen was the same one from the texts. My appetite evaporated. My resolve did not. The following morning, Dawn called from the restaurant. All set, she said. Screen tested. Door open. Your table is private, but visible. I thanked her. When I hung up, a new email landed. It was from an address I did not recognize. Subject line, reservation confirmation for 2. The body held a date, a time, and the name Ivy. She had booked the restaurant for that same night. A table for 2. 1 hour before mine. The room I had built was about to hold more truth than I had planned. The email about Ivy's reservation stayed on my screen for a long time. A single line of text that carried the weight of a wrecking ball. Adrian had chosen the same restaurant. The same night. The same walls I had prepared as my stage. For a moment, my hands trembled. Was this fate or a cruel coincidence? Maren leaned over my shoulder, reading the email with me. She let out a low whistle. You could not script this if you tried, she said. You wanted exposure? Looks like the universe just sent you extra lighting. But I felt the weight of danger too. If Adrian and Ivy showed up before my dinner, the entire reveal could collapse. He might storm off. He might twist the story before I even opened my mouth. Timing was my weapon, but it could also be my undoing. So we adjusted. I called Dawn, the restaurant manager. My voice was calm, but every syllable carried urgency. I need my reservation shifted 30 minutes earlier, I said. And I need you to keep the door open, but make sure the table nearest mine stays empty. Dawn didn't flinch. I can do that, she said. But if the other party asks questions, I cut in gently. Tell them the room is being used for a private event. Which is true. Next, I spoke with Sable, my attorney. I forwarded the email. She studied it and replied in her measured, steel-edged voice. If they arrive, do not engage them directly. Let your evidence do the talking. You are not here for drama. You are here for clarity. Then she added, but it would not hurt to have someone record the evening. Discreetly. With consent from your guests. That night, Maren brought over a small tripod camera. I will set it up near the side wall, she said. Not for YouTube. Not for gossip. Just in case he tries to twist what was said. I agreed. Truth needed memory. The next day, my sister Etta arrived. She swept into my apartment with a hug that cracked my ribs and an energy that filled the room like sunlight. "You are not alone," she said. "Not now, not ever." We spent hours rehearsing what I might say. She made me stand, hold a glass, and speak my 3-sentence script until the words felt like bone instead of paper. When I faltered, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "Stronger." Meanwhile, allies kept aligning. Mrs. Pruitt, my neighbor, agreed to join the dinner. She said she wanted to look him in the eye. Lila from work confirmed she would be there. Even Mira, Adrian's mother, called to say she was bringing a small bouquet. "To remind you," she said, "that some flowers are given with love, not deceit." My throat tightened, but I thanked her. The circle was forming. Each ally a pillar. Each piece of evidence a brick. And at the center, me, ready to stop shrinking. But the thought of Ivy's reservation pressed on me like a stone. Would she arrive first? Would she see the setup? Would she realize before the curtain rose? I decided to use it. If Ivy appeared, she would not find a quiet, romantic dinner. She would walk into a room already full of witnesses and truths she could not run from. For years, she had whispered in shadows. Now she would face daylight. Still, I needed one more safeguard. I wrote to Dawn again. "If Ivy arrives before my dinner," I said, "please seat her in the front dining area. Far from the private room. And if Adrian comes early with her, do not let him cancel my reservation. Hold my table." Dawn agreed. "We protect our clients," she said firmly. The plan was layered now. Even if Adrian tried to derail me, the structure would hold. The night before the dinner, I sat at my desk and opened the index of files Marin and Arlo had built. Each link a truth. Each timestamp a nail. I scrolled until my eyes blurred. Receipts. Messages. Camera clips. Witness notes. At the end of the list, I added one more document, choice. It was a single page. I choose to leave this relationship. I choose financial independence. I choose truth, not silence. I printed it, folded it, and slid it into the envelope that held my divorce papers. Not for theater. For finality. When I closed my laptop, Etta was standing by the window, arms crossed. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "But not because I am fearless. Because I am done being afraid." The next evening arrived. Guests began to gather, laughter muffled by the anticipation humming in the air. The projector glowed softly on the wall. My heart pounded, but my steps were steady. And then I saw it, a shadow at the entrance. A familiar posture. Adrian had arrived, 20 minutes early. And he was not alone. Adrian walked in with Ivy on his arm. Her dress shimmered under the low lights, silver threads catching every flicker like she had chosen it to be seen. They looked polished, prepared, as if they were about to star in their own little performance. My pulse thudded in my ears. 20 minutes too early. My allies were still arriving. The files were ready, the projector tested, but the room was not yet full. If Adrian noticed the setup before the guests had gathered, he could bolt, twist the narrative, or worse, cancel the evening. I kept my back straight and leaned toward Dawn, the restaurant manager. She was already moving like a chess player who saw the same thread I did. With one smooth gesture, she intercepted Adrian and Ivy. Her voice carried just enough authority to mask the nerves in mine. "Welcome," Dawn said warmly. "Your table is being prepared in the front dining area. Please, this way." Adrian frowned. "Front? We reserved the private room." My stomach flipped. Ivy's lips curved into a knowing smile, as if she thought she had outmaneuvered me. Dawn stayed calm. "The private room is hosting a prearranged dinner. You will be very comfortable here." She guided them toward a smaller table near the window, far from the private space I had claimed. Adrian looked ready to protest, but Ivy tugged his sleeve. "It is fine," she said softly. "We will make it our own." They sat. My breath loosened just enough to focus. The clock was still ticking, but the plan had not shattered. Yet. I turned back toward my allies. Marin had just slipped inside, carrying her small camera bag. She caught my eye, read the tension on my face, and whispered, "He is here?" I nodded. "Good," she said. "Let him watch." We adjusted quickly. The dinner began 30 minutes earlier than planned. Guests trickled in, Mrs. Pruitt with her careful steps, Lila carrying a folder, Etta with her fire in her eyes. Each arrival tilted the balance back to my side. Still, the complication forced me to change my script. Instead of waiting until dessert, I would reveal during the first course. Adrian was too close, too impatient, and Ivy's presence lit a fuse that could not be ignored. As we settled, I raised my glass. "Thank you all for being here," I began, voice steady. "Tonight is not just about celebration. It is about truth." Across the room, Adrian stiffened. Ivy tilted her head, curious. Marin clicked the projector on. The first slide appeared, a screenshot of a bank statement. My card. Flowers purchased in Ivy's city. Gasps fluttered around the table. Adrian's chair screeched against the floor as he stood. "What is this?" he demanded, voice low but sharp enough to slice the room. I lifted my eyes to him. "This," I said, "is the beginning." Etta handed me the folder. I laid out receipts, messages, timelines, each page a mirror Adrian could not dodge. Ivy's smile faltered as the evidence stacked higher. He slammed his palm on the table. "You are being dramatic." Mrs. Pruitt's voice cracked through the tension. "No, Adrian. She is being precise." The room went silent. For the first time, he looked cornered. His eyes darted between the projector and the faces surrounding him. Faces that were no longer his audience but my witnesses. I held the final envelope in my hand. Divorce papers. My declaration of choice. But I did not open it yet. Timing mattered. Because the most devastating slide, the one that showed his double reservations, his false promises, his financial deceit, was still waiting. And I wanted the room full before I let it burn. The room had swelled with voices and clinking glasses, but as Marin dimmed the lights and advanced the next slide, silence crashed down like a wave. On the screen glowed proof that stripped away every excuse Adrian could have conjured, hotel bookings under his name, overlapping with work trips, and signed receipts from the same boutique florist that charged my card. The last image froze the room, the reservation confirmation for a weekend getaway. 2 guests. 1 king bed. Paid with my money. Gasps rippled like fire catching dry leaves. Ivy's face drained of its smugness. She leaned away from Adrian, her smile twisted into panic. Adrian lunged toward the projector, but Lila intercepted him, stepping forward with calm steel. "Do not touch it," she said. Her voice cut cleaner than a blade. He froze, breathing hard, then turned his anger on me. "You planned this circus? Here? In front of everyone?" I stood slowly, my chair legs dragging across the floor with deliberate sound. "I did not plan your lies, Adrian. I only decided where the truth should live." The slide shifted again, Marin's careful hand making sure each wound landed with precision. Screenshots of his late-night texts to Ivy, her responses coy and cruel, appeared one after the other. "You said she is so gullible," Ivy had written. "She will never suspect." I heard murmurs. Some guests shook their heads, others whispered unbelievable. Mrs. Pruitt placed her napkin down, hands trembling. Adrian's voice grew louder, almost desperate. "You do not understand. Marriage is complicated. We were under stress, and he pointed at Ivy, she was just a mistake." But Ivy was done being his shield. She snapped back, her voice cracking. A mistake? You promised me she was out of the picture. You told me you were leaving her. The room tightened. His own accomplice turned against him. I stepped closer, divorce envelope in hand. You drained our savings for this, I said, holding the papers like a weapon of clarity. You mocked me for being too emotional. You thought I would stay quiet forever. I opened the envelope and placed the signed papers on the table, right between his trembling hands. But I am not quiet. And tonight, I am done. Marin flipped to the last slide, my closing statement in bold letters: marriage is built on trust. Without it, there is nothing left to keep. Adrian's breath hitched. The weight of the room pressed down, crushing the performance he had lived in for months. Ivy stood abruptly, her chair clattering behind her. She muttered something, too faint to catch, then stormed out, silver dress flashing like broken glass. Adrian reached for her, but she was already gone. His hand dropped. He looked back at me, red with fury, his eyes wild. You will regret this, he hissed. I leaned in, my voice steady. No, Adrian. Tonight is when regret comes for you. The dining room that had once been alive with laughter now sat heavy with the crackle of tension. Every face turned toward Adrian as though waiting for the next move in a play they never asked to attend. He stood frozen by the table, the divorce papers beneath his palm, his jaw clenched so tightly I could see the tendons quivering along his neck. For the first time since I met him, Adrian looked small. Not humbled. Cornered. I cannot believe you would humiliate me like this, he spat finally, his voice trembling with rage. I did not flinch. I did not humiliate you, Adrian. You did that yourself. All I did was stop hiding it for you. A hush swept over the guests, the kind of silence that demanded honesty. Mrs. Pruitt, who had watched us since we were newlyweds, shook her head slowly. Adrian. I thought better of you. Her disappointment cut deeper than my anger ever could. At another table, one of his co-workers leaned close to another and whispered, not quietly enough, how can we trust him with contracts when he cannot even honor his vows? The words landed. Adrian's career, the pedestal he had built with careful charm, began to wobble in plain view. Lila moved to my side, steady as always. She rested a hand briefly on my arm, a silent reminder that I was not alone. The truth was owed to you, she said firmly, raising her voice just enough for others to hear. And to everyone else he deceived. Adrian lunged toward her, pointing a finger. Stay out of this. But Marin was quicker. She stepped between us, eyes blazing. Do not threaten her. Not tonight. She gestured to the glowing screen still alive with evidence. You cannot shout this away. His eyes darted from me, to the screen, to the door where Ivy had fled. The weight of exposure settled over him like a chain. He was trapped in his own lies, and every person in the room now knew it. Ivy is lying, he tried again, but even his voice betrayed him, shaky and hollow. Those messages are taken out of context. Marin scrolled back to the slide with his florist receipt, the same day my credit card notification had buzzed at midnight. Explain this context, she said coolly. Someone in the crowd snorted. Another muttered, pathetic. Adrian's facade cracked further. He slumped into his chair, face buried in his hands, the picture of a man finally stripped bare. I spoke then, not with fury but with clarity. This was never about destroying you, Adrian. It was about reclaiming me. About showing that I am not your fool, not your safety net, and certainly not your victim. The words echoed, resonating with women around the table. One nodded. Another whispered, good for her. The birthday cake, untouched until now, still sat on the dessert cart with candles that would never be lit for him. The irony was sharp, the celebration he thought would crown him now crowned me with freedom. Finally, Adrian rose again, his face blotched red, his voice breaking. You think you have one? I met his eyes, unblinking. I did not win, Adrian. The truth did. He stood in silence, trembling, then grabbed his coat and stormed toward the door. Each step away was punctuated by the sound of his own downfall, echoing in whispers, in disappointed sighs, in the collective judgment of the people he once worked so hard to impress. The door slammed behind him. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, applause began. Not loud, not mocking, steady, supportive. For me. I pressed my hand to my chest, steadying my breath. Tonight was not the end. But it was the breaking point. Morning light spilled through my curtains, soft and quiet, in sharp contrast to the storm from the night before. I lay in bed for a long moment, listening to the silence. No angry footsteps. No half-hearted apologies. No carefully rehearsed excuses. Adrian had not come home. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Dozens of messages lit up the screen, some from friends who had been at the dinner, others from coworkers who had already heard the whispers spreading like wildfire. The first one I opened was from Marin. He will try to spin this. Do not let him. Call me if he shows up. The second was from Lila. Proud of you. You were stronger than any of us expected. Breakfast later? Then there was one from an unknown number. My stomach nodded as I read it. You ruined everything. I hope you are happy. I knew it was Adrian. Instead of replying, I forwarded it to Marin. Add this to the file, I typed. She responded almost instantly, already done. Do not engage with him. I forced myself out of bed, showered, and dressed with deliberate care. Today was not about wallowing. Today was about facing what came next. By 9, I was in Marin's office. She looked sharp in her suit, coffee steaming on her desk. She handed me a folder. We filed the preliminary paperwork this morning. With the receipts, the messages, and the financial misuse, the court will see this clearly. He used your shared accounts for gifts to another woman. That is not just betrayal, it is fraud. I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. So he cannot twist it? He can try, Marin said dryly. But the law favors evidence. And you have plenty. Later that afternoon, I walked into my office building. Heads turned. People who usually offered polite smiles now looked at me with open admiration, some even with awe. One colleague leaned in and whispered, "You gave him exactly what he deserved." It was surreal. For years, I had been the quiet one, the peacemaker, the woman who endured his little slights and covered for his late arrivals. Now, I was the woman who exposed him, who refused to be mocked into silence. By evening, the story had spread further than I ever imagined. A coworker forwarded me screenshots of a group chat where Adrian's name had been ripped apart. Words like liar, cheater, and coward filled the thread. His reputation, the image he had polished so carefully, was unraveling in real time. When I finally returned home, I noticed something small but significant. Adrian's key was missing from the hook by the door. He had not just stormed out. He had chosen not to return. I poured myself a glass of wine, lit a single candle, and sat at the table that had once been ours. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt earned. But I knew one thing with certainty: he would not disappear quietly. Adrian was too proud for that. Tomorrow, there would be another battle. The next morning, I was ready. Adrian did not knock. He stormed into Marin's office unannounced, his voice sharp enough to cut through the hallway. She is exaggerating. She twisted everything. His words tumbled fast, desperate, like someone trying to outrun their own shadow. I sat calmly at the table. Marin gestured for him to sit. He refused, pacing instead. I was under stress. Those gifts meant nothing. And the money? We shared that account. Marin slid the evidence folder across the table. This is not about emotions, Adrian. This is about transactions. You used her card without consent. You lied repeatedly. Courts care about facts. His face flushed red. He turned to me, trying one last weapon: guilt. You could have talked to me. We could have fixed this in private. But you humiliated me in front of everyone. For the first time, I met his gaze without fear. I asked. I begged. I waited. You left me with silence and lies. So I gave you the only truth you could not dodge. He sneered, but the fight in him faltered. He realized it. Marin realized it. And so did I. The hearing was quick. The judge looked at the receipts, the records, the messages. Adrian tried to protest, but every word tangled tighter around him. In less than an hour, the decision was clear: financial misconduct established, grounds for divorce accepted, and restitution ordered. Walking out of the courthouse, the winter air hit my face like a baptism. Clean. Sharp. Real. Marin walked beside me. You did not just win a case, she said. You ended his performance. That evening, I returned home alone. But it did not feel lonely. It felt mine. I cooked a simple meal, set one plate, and ate with music humming in the background. No shouting. No lies. Just peace. The next weeks were a blur of change. Friends rallied. My sister helped me box up the remnants of his life. Even co-workers who had stayed silent before now stopped by my desk to say, "We saw what you did." It mattered. Adrian faded into whispers. No more grand gestures. No more expensive illusions. The man who loved applause now lived without an audience. Months later, on what would have been our anniversary, I booked myself a trip. No shared plans, no hidden betrayals, just me standing on the cliffs of another country, wind in my hair, ocean roaring below. Free. And now, as I tell you this, I want you to hear me clearly. If you have ever been told you are too emotional, too dramatic, or too much, remember this: your feelings are not weaknesses. They are warnings. They are truth knocking. And truth, when spoken, can be the sharpest revenge of all. So tell your story. Name your pain. Expose the lies. Not with screams, not with chaos, but with clarity. Because the quiet power of truth will always outlast the loudest performance. And if you want to hear more stories where betrayal turns into justice, where silence turns into strength, stay with me. There are more truths to tell.